Daniel was a quiet single father in his late 30s, working long shifts as a mechanic just to keep life steady for himself and his little boy. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the rows of shuttered shops, he drove past an abandoned parking lot and caught sight of something that froze him in place. Two young girls, identical twins, no older than 8, sat side by side on milk crates, their matching red shirts wrinkled, their golden curls tangled with dust. In front of them stood a torn cardboard sign scrawled with words that made Daniel's heart clench, $500 for both. For a moment, he thought it had to be some cruel joke. But the emptiness in their eyes told him otherwise. A woman stood a few feet away, her arms crossed tightly, glaring at the girls as if they were burdens instead of children. Daniel rolled down his window, struggling to make sense of the scene. "Excuse me, what's going on here?" he asked. The woman's response was cold, cutting, and without shame. "They're not mine. I can't feed them. Take them for $500 if you want. Otherwise, someone else will." Daniel felt his breath catch in his throat. His mind raced with disbelief, anger, and sorrow all at once. He looked at the girls again, their tiny hands clutching each other for comfort, their lips trembling but silent. Something deep inside him, something stronger than logic or fear, told him he couldn't just drive away. This was not about money. This was about two innocent lives hanging by a thread, waiting for someone, anyone, to choose them. Daniel stepped out of his truck, his boots crunching against the gravel as he approached the twins. The woman, who introduced herself bitterly as their stepmother, repeated her offer as if she were selling an old piece of furniture, $500. Cash. Take them or leave them. Daniel's chest tightened in outrage, but he forced himself to stay calm. He crouched down in front of the girls, lowering his voice so only they could hear. "Hey, are you two okay?" The twins didn't speak, but one of them blinked rapidly, fighting back tears, while the other buried her face into her sister's shoulder. Their silence told him everything. They weren't okay. They were terrified. Daniel's heart broke in that moment. He thought about his own son at home, safe and loved, and realized these girls deserved nothing less. Without hesitation, he pulled out the wad of bills he had been saving for rent. His hands shook as he handed the cash over. "I'll take them," he said firmly. The woman snatched the money, barely glancing back as she walked away, leaving the twins sitting there like discarded belongings. Daniel knelt again, his voice steady but gentle. "You're safe now. I promise." For the first time, one of the girls whispered softly, "Are you really going to take us home?" Daniel's throat tightened as he nodded. Yes. Home. He knew he had just made a life-altering decision, one that didn't make sense on paper. But in his heart, it was the only choice. The ride back to Daniel's small apartment was quiet at first, the twins huddled together in the back seat, their wide eyes darting nervously at every sound. Daniel glanced at them in the rearview mirror, his chest heavy with both worry and determination. "My name's Daniel," he said gently, hoping to ease their fear. "What are your names?" After a long pause, the bolder twin finally whispered, "Emma," while her sister added timidly, "Ella." Their voices were so faint it nearly broke him. As they drove, Daniel tried to piece together how anyone could abandon children so precious. He offered them water and snacks from his glove compartment, watching as they devoured the crackers like they hadn't eaten all day. When they finally reached his apartment, his son, Lucas, ran to the door, confused but curious. "Dad? Who are they?" Daniel placed a hand on his boy's shoulder. "These are our new friends. They're going to stay with us for a while." Lucas, only 6, smiled innocently and held out a toy car to the twins. For the first time, Daniel saw a flicker of light return to their eyes. Later that night, as he tucked Lucas into bed, Daniel overheard the twins whispering to each other from the spare mattress he'd laid out for them. Emma's voice trembled with hope. "Do you think he'll keep us safe?" Ella answered softly, "I think so, he's different." Daniel stood quietly in the doorway, fighting back tears. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing with certainty: he could not let them go. The following days revealed pieces of the girl's heartbreaking story. Between hesitant whispers and sudden tears, Daniel learned that their father had passed away a year earlier, leaving them in the care of his second wife. Instead of nurturing them, the stepmother treated Emma and Ella as burdens, withholding meals, locking them outside, and finally deciding to sell them off as if their lives had no worth. Each detail struck Daniel like a hammer to the chest. At night, while the twins slept curled together on the couch, Daniel sat awake, staring at the ceiling. Questions consumed him: how could someone be so cruel, and what kind of world allowed children to be treated this way? But beneath the questions burned a fierce resolve. He might not be wealthy or powerful, but he knew he could offer them something their stepmother never would: love, stability, and safety. Slowly, trust began to blossom. Emma started to laugh at Lucas's silly jokes, while Ella clung to Daniel's side whenever they walked outside, as if terrified he might disappear. One morning, as he packed lunches for school, Ella tugged at his sleeve and whispered, "Thank you for choosing us." Daniel froze, his eyes stinging. He knelt down and hugged her tightly. "You were never a choice," he said softly. "You were a gift." In that instant, he realized he hadn't just rescued them. They were rescuing him too, filling a space in his heart he never knew was empty. Weeks turned into months, and Daniel's small apartment slowly transformed into a real home filled with laughter, arguments over toys, and the aroma of late-night pancakes. The twins were no longer shadows of fear, they began to blossom in the warmth of safety. Emma discovered a love for drawing, covering scraps of paper with colorful flowers, while Ella sang softly to herself when she thought no one was listening. Yet Daniel knew their journey wasn't just about healing, it was about securing a future. He contacted social services, bracing himself for judgment. The caseworker was stunned by his story, and at first, doubted whether a single mechanic could manage 3 children on his modest income. But then she visited unannounced one Saturday afternoon. She found Emma and Ella giggling as they braided Lucas's hair, while Daniel flipped pancakes in the kitchen, humming off-key. The caseworker's eyes softened, and after a long pause she said, "This is what family looks like." That night, Daniel signed the first set of foster papers, tears streaming down his face as the girls clung to him. Emma whispered, "Does this mean we're staying?" and Daniel pulled them close. "Forever, if I can help it." For the first time in a long time, they all believed in forever. Nearly a year later, the courtroom was filled with quiet anticipation as Daniel stood before the judge, Emma and Ella clutching his hands tightly. Lucas sat proudly beside them, swinging his legs, grinning like this was the best day of his life. The judge's voice echoed through the room, "It is hereby ordered that Emma and Ella are granted permanent adoption by Mr. Daniel Hayes." For a heartbeat, silence hung in the air, then the twins burst into tears, wrapping their arms around Daniel's waist. Applause rippled softly through the courtroom, but Daniel barely heard it. All he felt were their tiny hands gripping him, as if afraid to ever let go. Later, outside under the bright afternoon sun, the girls looked up at him with eyes no longer empty but alive with trust. "We have a real dad now," Emma whispered, and Ella added, "and a real brother too." Daniel knelt, his voice breaking with emotion. "You've always been real. You've always mattered. And now, you're home." That night, back in their cozy apartment, the 4 of them sat around the dinner table, laughter spilling into every corner. Daniel realized the truth that had once shattered him no longer felt like tragedy, it felt like destiny. He hadn't bought 2 little girls for $500. He had been given the priceless gift of family, proof that love is not measured by blood or circumstance but by the choice to stand up, to protect, and to cherish. In the end, it wasn't just their lives that had been saved. His was, too.